Richard Keys and Andy Gray on TalkSport.
Kia Drabkian, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Afternoon, Kia. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, thanks.
Good luck.
We don't intend to start pointing fingers, name-calling, or suggesting our dad's bigger than his dad, but is the Tevez saga reaching a conclusion?
Well, I mean, I think, Manchester City had made a position that, they would like to move the player on, but at a certain price. We've been in negotiations with 3 big clubs. I don't think anyone's reached the numbers that City were hoping for. And so at the moment it looks like, Carlos has always said, this is not about money for him. And at the moment it looks like, Carlos will remain at City until at least the summer.
If it's not about the money for him, why did the PSG deal fall?
The PSG deal fell through because, it hasn't fallen through. I'd say that, the appetite for PSG was that they want to build, they've got a project that they want to build for long term. The Qataris are investing certain capital into the PSG brand, and I think that Carlos is maybe 6 months to a year too early for them. If you look at the players that they've been signing this year, they've been of good caliber, but for them to go into the next level, they're not yet fighting for the Champions League. I think their target is to win the championship this year, and I think maybe in the summer there's a big chance that Carlos could go to PSG.
But right now, favourite outcome is that Tevez stays at City.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I think, Mancini said it's impossible, but I think, he has to understand that Carlos has a contract at City for the next 2.5 years.
Well,
so
how much does Carlos understand that he has a contract? He's been walkabout in Argentina these past 3 months, Kia.
Yeah, and, Carlos does understand that he has a contract, but he's been walkabout. But, I think, both of them, Carlos has come to terms with the fact that, he's got to come back and live with Mancini. I think, you look at Carlos, and he started the project with 2.5 years ago with Manchester City. What was the project? The project was to make Manchester City one of the biggest clubs in Europe, to bring City into the Champions League was the first aim, and to make City a big club. And I think for 2 years, everyone forgets that Carlos was that. He was the best player there.
I don't think we do.
I don't think people forget that.
I think that hurts us more. Those of us who are looking at it from a distance, you think, why, Carlos? Why have you thrown that all away?
Well, I think you guys don't forget it, but I think a lot of people do. I mean, you look at the situation where, football has a very short memory, I think, and you look at, there was certain fans that you've seen that are throwing Carlos' shirt away, etc. And you reflect back and you think, well, okay, for 2 years, he was dedicated to the football club. He was the top scorer in the football club both years. He went to Italy to get massive treatment on his knee to make sure that he's back for the cup final. He did everything he could. He was the top scorer in the league, joint with Berbatov last year. But I think, the relationship with Mancini, ever since Mancini came into the football club, has not been good. I think you think about last Christmas when Carlos wanted to leave, and it was all to do with feuds with the manager. And I think that just carried on and on.
But you didn't tell us that then. You said it was about wanting to go home, and that's been a problem as well, hasn't it?
Yeah,
because we scratch our heads and wonder how much nearer to home Milan is, or Paris. So you're now saying it was about personal matters.
I think there was a point where Carlos did say, well, okay, you know what, I can't get on here. And he's not the only one. I mean, you have to just reflect back and say that, Bellamy had to leave Manchester City in an awkward way. Adebayor has had to leave Manchester City in an awkward way. Shay Given has had to leave Manchester City in a semi-awkward way. Wayne Bridge has been isolated and is not even training with the first team.
But Roberto Mancini would say...
He's not alone. He's not alone, Carlos, in that.
On top of the league.
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. And he's done a good job as a coach. But I don't think there's many coaches in the world that would be given the opportunity to say, I'll throw away Adebayor, and someone will buy him Edwin Dzeko. I'll throw away Carlos Tevez and someone will buy him Sergio Aguero, and I'll throw away Craig Bellamy and someone buys him Balotelli. So there isn't many clubs in the world that could afford just to throw away a player and then be given someone else.
Is that what's happened, okay? Is Carlos not contributed to this fallout himself?
I think everyone is to contributes. I don't think you don't point a finger just at one person. I mean, I think everyone contributes. Every player that has a problem at a club, there's always two sides of the story, and I think if cooler heads and maturity prevails, and these things don't get out of hand. But I also think that it's the responsibility of the managers on how to control the players.
How much of a surprise was it to you that, having got to a point with cool heads, that the problems that occurred in Munich seemed to have been overcome, and then Carlos, of his own volition or with your advice, went walkabout? You must have been pulling your hair out at that stage, surely.
I mean, for sure. And I think you look at right now, and the people that are running Manchester City have really tried very, very hard to accommodate everything that's going on. I mean, they've been, I'd say they've been excellent in everything that they're trying to do. But the problem at Munich, whatever the problem was, which was that
listen, that's what I said. We don't need to keep going back there. It's where we are that matters.
Exactly. Refusing to warm up or whatever. But I think these are situations where the managers need to be managing the football club. And if it was in the heat of the moment, I think in the hierarchy at Manchester City, the ones that are running the club would have handled this in a slightly different way, and things wouldn't have exploded. But the explosion of that day, the manager's comments of that day, the situation of that day was so bad that it created an almost unsustainable. I mean, Carlos served 2 weeks suspension. Then he was training on his own, and then he was training in the reserves. So I guess at some point, you have to say, okay, well, he's served his training on his own. He served in the reserves. Now I'll try to integrate him back. And there was never any door to that, which is probably why he left to Argentina, because he could just not see any light of him ever being reintegrated into the first team. And Roberto Mancini has been very clear to say that he doesn't want him in the first team. So what does he do? Does he just sit in the reserves, collect his money, and say, well, stuff you guys at City, I just want to collect my money, I'm very happy here, I'll just keep reserving? Or say, okay, well, I'm not actually going to collect my money, I don't actually think that, I'm going to sit here and just train in the reserves. I'd like to play football, and if I can, I'd like to be back in the first team. In order to do that, was there not an invitation for him to say sorry? Whatever happened, but you both have different versions of the event in Munich. If Carlos had just said sorry, couldn't he have played on? Yes, but I mean, from Carlos's point of view, and having spoken to him, what is he saying sorry for? Well, that's for you internally to decide. But if he'd gone public and said sorry, surely the door would have been open for him to. But then what is that? It's like it's almost like a fake I'm sorry, and then he walks through the door, and a week later the situation goes on because he doesn't believe deep down on that night so where are we now? Are you saying the deal with Milan has fallen, Inter has fallen, PSG has fallen, and Roberto Mancini and City should expect Carlos Tevez back through the door on Monday morning? Well, I mean, at the moment, I think, PSG are in the process of signing Alex, the defender from Chelsea, and that takes up their last foreign space for at least until the summer. So Inter, I believe, was never really in the race from day one, and that's my belief. We never had any contacts with Inter. We never spoke to Inter throughout this period, although they had made some contacts with Manchester City. So I think that, the only one that was left was AC Milan, and unfortunately AC Milan can't reach an agreement with Manchester City at the moment. So, yeah, I guess at this present moment in time, that Carlos has to come back to Manchester City or potentially go on loan somewhere just in order to recover his football. What options are there in that respect then?
Well, on loan. Well, I'm guessing that you could only go on loan abroad, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's an option or not. You know, I don't know if even that if that's an option for City.
So what we were talking about earlier, saying Carlos didn't want to just come back, train with reserves, and pick up his money. It looks like Carlos is going to have to come back, train with the reserves, and pick up his money.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to because, you know, for contractual reasons, you know. But the reality is that he's not the kind of player that wants to just sort of walk around and say, well, I'm picking up my money. I mean, to be honest, any one of us would have done it maybe to say, okay, well, we'll sit in the reserves, we'll pick up the money and we'll wait for a move.
Are you actively talking to other clubs now about Carlos going out on loan before January the 21st?
No, we haven't spoken to anyone about loan.
Can you foresee a situation where Carlos will wear the Manchester City jersey again?
Well, I think that depends on who's the manager, and if the manager is Roberto Mancini, then it's his decision, and you know, it's not mine or anyone else's really. I mean, that comes down to what Mancini decides. But I think he's quite, you know, he's in a very fortunate position because when he was at Inter and now at City, both clubs at the times were the highest spending clubs in the world. At Inter, when he was at Inter, he was the highest spending manager in the world.
I know what you say. I understand this.
So, but maybe he doesn't.
Yeah,
you know, he has plenty of options.
If
so maybe he doesn't need it.
If City said he can go on loan to Milan, would that do the deal, or are they saying that we will only sanction this if it's a sale?
Well, City want to sell Carlos. They don't want to loan him. That doesn't mean that they will not come up with some sort of a construction that maybe, you know, would work for them. But at this present moment in time, they've been very clear. They've been very good. I have to say that, you know, they have not created any obstacles. They've been excellent. And they have tried everything possible to make it happen. But they would like to make it happen as a permanent. And I get it because, you know, they've sent many players on loan who've then ended up coming back. And I think what they were trying to do at this moment in time is not to create a situation where they're constantly sending players on loan and then they're coming back. I mean, the direction of City has changed with the change of chief executives.
So actually, it is the case then that Milan know this and they're trying to nick him, aren't they? Does that
I don't think that's true. I think Milan have tried to purchase him. I think with the sale of Pato, they were about to make the deal happen. Unfortunately, Pato's sale did not go through, and it created an obstacle for them. You know, I think the summer will open up a lot of different markets. The one problem you've got, I mean, what is Carlos's market? Carlos's market is in all the big clubs. You're talking, and all the big clubs, unfortunately, what are they looking for? They're looking for players that can play in the Champions League, because most of those clubs are either first or second in their respective leagues. Carlos is cup tied, and so that makes a big obstacle right now, because you are spending a very large sum of money to buy a player or take a player with, you know, it's a big number for the transfer and it's a big number for the salary, and he can't play Champions League. And people are thinking, you know, in January, you know, you've got February, March, April, and half of May, so you have 3.5 months. You know, they may as well wait until the summer and then restructure their teams respectively.
Keir Drabcan's with us. Just sort of something else for us, Keir, if you will. Has
Sure.
Tevez earned since he left City? Has he earned anything?
No, not at the moment. No, he's not earning.
Was that something City did, or?
Yeah, I think you know, they had whilst he's away, his salary has, you know, he has not been earning salary, and I mean, you know, Carlos has always said he's not about money. He doesn't want to sit and, you know, run in the reserves and just earn money for no reason. He's always been the kind of person that gives 100%, I think, on the pitch. And, you know, we can all say whatever we want about him, but you can always know that when, as a professional, every time he enters the pitch, he gives 100% and he earns his money to the full. So
I've said to Andy many times on this subject, you can't see City loaning him out, Andy, to someone that's in contention for the same prize as them. But
of course they're not.
If I'm Sam Allardyce, is it worth making a call?
Well, he is a West Ham fanatic, so I would say so. You know, that is probably one club that is very, very close to his heart. But I think that, you know, that would be not possible.
Why?